Welcome to Skedline. It's Wednesday, February 19th, and here's what's making news now. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is urging patience as negotiations continue with the leaders of the CN rail blockade. The Canadian government is seeking a peaceful end to the protests amidst pressure from the Conservative opposition party. The demonstrators, acting in support of the Wet'suwet'en people, say they will only meet with the government on the condition that the RCMP is called off. Wet'suwet'en Chief Woos, in an interview with the CBC, called the RCMP bullies and said that they will refuse to negotiate with a gun against their head. The protesters are in opposition to the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is planned to go through unceded Indigenous territory, meaning land that's not owned by the Government of Canada. In spite of the blockade, via trains between Ottawa and Quebec City are expected to resume on Thursday. Amidst the protests, CN is laying off roughly 450 employees, including staff in Eastern Passage, Montcalm, Charnay, and Montreal. Via Rail has also announced 1,000 temporary layoffs because of the protests. Opposition leader Andrew Scheer slammed Trudeau over his handling of the situation, saying, quote, "Dialogue is not going to pay the bills for people who are facing layoffs because of people breaking the law." Prime Minister Trudeau responded that the Canadian government will do everything in their power to resolve the situation quickly and peacefully. Coastal GasLink, the company behind the Trans Mountain Pipeline, has an agreement with 20 Indigenous councils along the pipeline's route. But the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs say that those councils have no authority over the relevant land. The COVID-19 death toll has just passed 2,000 people. This announcement following the release of roughly 500 passengers quarantined on the cruise ship Diamond Princess. The quarantine was an utter failure, turning the ship into a breeding ground for the virus and resulting in an additional 79 cases, bringing the total up to 621. Japan's government has fallen under scrutiny for the quarantine, with some health experts calling the ship a perfect petri dish. Those released from the quarantine who showed no symptoms and passed the test for COVID-19 have been allowed to go home, but some governments are hesitant to allow their residents to return. Japanese officials say the rest of testing and the resulting release will take the next 3 days. The Aleppo civilian airport in Syria has just received its first scheduled flight in 8 years. The Syrian airplane touched down early this afternoon, days after the Russian-Syrian army said it took control of rural areas near Aleppo. The Syrian government hopes that commercial flights will boost the city's economy after it was host to some of the most vicious violence of the Syrian civil war. In another win for Syria, Syrian forces have regained control of the M5 highway, which links Aleppo directly to Damascus. Transport Minister Ali Hamoud is eager to resume international flights. The search for 9-year-old Alex Otley resumes today. Alex was out exploring with his friends when a wave pulled one of them into the lake near Peacock Point. Alex tried to pull his friend out, but was unfortunately pulled under in the effort. The search for his body was interrupted by winds and cold weather, which stopped OPP boats and divers from being able to deploy. The search was and will continue to be bolstered by the Peacock Point community, many of whom helped comb the shores and offered to organize dives. Rodney Leclerc, OPP constable for the Peacock Point area, says, quote, "They all knew this little boy. You can see the pain on their faces, and they all want to do something." In Etobicoke news, there has been a shooting in the Willow Ridge neighborhood near Martin Grove and Eglinton, leaving one teenage man in serious condition. The victim, believed to be 19 years old, brought himself to Etobicoke General Hospital with several gunshot wounds in his face and upper body. He has since been transferred to the trauma unit and is now in stable condition. Ontario's new blue and white license plates are illegible to traffic cameras in Toronto. Specifically, the size of the new font makes it almost impossible for automated traffic cameras to read. This after Toronto police also complained about the new plates, saying that they were difficult to see at night. Mike Barnett, the manager of automated enforcement for the Toronto Police Service, doesn't blame the provincial government, instead choosing to return to their photo radar vendor to discuss new solutions. On a brighter note, Humboldt College is hosting a Brazilian carnival. The carnival will include dance, food, and crafts, and a costume contest. For full coverage of the carnival, keep an eye out for Mariana Bellum's coverage on skedline.com. Now, to Ireland Lavery for entertainment news.
Thank you, Maddie. American teen pop sensation Billie Eilish captivated the Brit Awards last night at the O2 Arena in London. She performed the new theme song to the forthcoming James Bond film No Time to Die. Eilish also broke into tears of joy while accepting her International Female Solo Artist Prize. During her acceptance speech, she said, quote, "I saw you guys all smiling at me. It genuinely made me want to cry, and I want to cry right now," end quote. Scottish singer Lewis Capaldi and rapper Dave were also big winners at the awards ceremony. Capaldi, who scooped 2 awards, sang his ballad "Someone You Loved" before he received the award for Best New Artist. Rapper Dave took full advantage of the spotlight and primetime television slot to make a political statement against Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He accused him of being racist in a lyrical attack. Dave won the coveted Album of the Year for his work, Psychodrama. British television presenter Jack Whitehall hosted the show and paid tribute at its opening to Caroline Flack, the 40-year-old television presenter who died by suicide on Saturday. Flack was found hanged in her London flat, and paramedics were unable to revive her, an inquest to her death has heard. The suicide of former presenter of the hugely popular Love Island dating show has reignited a debate in Britain about the conduct of the tabloid press and social media trolls. Coroner's officer Sandra Polson told the court that police had been flagged down on the street by an unidentified person who had led them to a residential address. There, a woman was found laying on her back. An ambulance arrived and paramedics attempted CPR but were unable to revive her. An autopsy determined that the cause of death was suspension by ligature. The coroner adjourned the rest of the inquest until August 5th. Canadian singer-songwriter The Weeknd has released the cover for his upcoming album After Hours. The Weeknd has also released the title track of the album. The work is the alternative R&B star's 4th album and will be released on March 20th. English singer-songwriter Ozzy Osbourne has canceled his North American tour for medical treatments, according to CNN. Osbourne will be going to Europe for treatment of his Parkinson's disease. The Black Sabbath lead singer announced his Parkinson's disease last month. Britain's royal family is still in talks with Prince Harry and wife Meghan over the use of the word royal in the couple's branding. The couple abruptly gave up their duties last month to start a new life in Canada. Intense media scrutiny is one of the main reasons for the couple's lifestyle change. The Queen agreed that the couple would no longer work as royals so they could carve out a, quote, progressive new role, end quote, which they hope to finance themselves. Now Reuters reports are centered on whether the couple can use the word royal in their branding. Jurors in former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein's rape trial are entering their 2nd day of deliberations today. The Manhattan jury of 7 men and 5 women began discussions yesterday morning after receiving legal instruction from State Justice James Burke. Weinstein has pleaded not guilty to sexually assaulting former production assistant Mimi Halei in 2006 and raping Jessica Mann, a one-time aspiring actress, in 2013. In 2017, more than 80 women have accused Weinstein of sexual misconduct. Weinstein, whose films include The English Patient and Shakespeare in Love, has denied the allegations and said any sexual encounters were consensual. The allegations fueled the Me Too movement, in which women have accused powerful men in business, entertainment, news media, and politics of sexual misconduct. That concludes our entertainment news. Now on to sports with Sarah.
Thanks, Ireland. Here's what we have for sports. Last night, the Toronto Maple Leafs lost 5-2 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby's 1.3 assist game put the Pens into first place in the Metropolitan Division. This is the Leafs' 3rd loss in 4 games. The teams are playing again in a home-and-home series tomorrow night at the Scotiabank Arena. Montreal Canadiens lost 4-3 to the Detroit Red Wings last night. The Red Wings forward Andreas Athanasiou scored his 2nd goal with less than 6 minutes left in the game. The Canadiens have now lost 5 games in a row for the 3rd time this season. Canadian fans are hoping for a turnaround when they play the Washington Capitals tomorrow night. The Winnipeg Jets beat the Los Angeles Kings 6-3 last night. It was the Kings' first game without forward Tyler Toffoli, who was traded to Vancouver on Monday. Blake Wheeler, the captain of the Winnipeg Jets, scored twice and added an assist on his 700th game. The Jets will be playing the Ottawa Senators tomorrow night. Ottawa beat the Buffalo Sabres 7-4 last night as Craig Anderson made 23 saves to pick up his 200th win with the franchise. The Senators had a lot to celebrate, scoreboards aside. The night started with Chris Phillips' number 4 being raised to the Raptors in a pre-game ceremony. Chris Phillips was Ottawa's first player to play his entire career in a Senators uniform. He holds the franchise record for games played, reaching 1,179. The Toronto Raptors are returning to the court this Friday to play against the Phoenix Suns. This is following the NBA All-Star break that happened over the weekend. Toronto will look to start a new winning streak after their 15-game streak was broken by the Brooklyn Nets. Humber men's basketball will wrap up the 2020 regular season tomorrow morning. The Hawks will be playing against their rival Sheridan College at Humber's North Campus gym. Humber women's basketball is also concluding their regular season tomorrow. The Hawks will be playing against Sheridan College's women's basketball team at Humber's North Campus gym. Both games will be streamed live on the Hawks Sports Network. It was a big week for Humber athletics as the Hawks took home 10 OCAA medals, including 6 provincial titles. This week's Humber Student Athlete of the Week honors 4 student athletes who helped Humber reign supreme in Ontario. Humber's Department of Athletics and Recreation is hosting a Nerf game tournament at the Lakeshore campus's main gym. Skedline reporter Jack Anderson covered the event. Let's take a look at some of the action.
Bring community gathering kind of thing, just get people to de-stress from exams, because you already know this week is exams. So the best kind of get people out of their books. And a lot of people don't know that we exist on campus, so we want to let people know that athletics is more than just basketball and soccer, that we have a lot of fun games.
For more fun from Humber and news on future events, check out humberathletics.ca. Now throwing it to Maddie Sear to close the show.
Thanks, Sarah. That's all we have for news at the moment. For skedline.com, I'm Maddie Sear.